Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Monday, November 28th. This is Barry Beer here. Firstly, an apology for not bringing you Friday's episode. And this is episode 58 now. I hope that you've all had a good weekend, and we'd like to go over some things, but we will get to that very shortly. Well, as you probably know, I will be leaving this program very soon. Okay, so I will let you know when that happens. Okay, so it is happening. Okay, so there are still a couple of episodes left to go. Here's Mark now. Good morning, Mark. Happy Monday to you.
Good morning, Barry. Good morning, viewers. I'm very glad to be here on this very steamy Monday, and I hope you all had a great weekend. I certainly enjoyed mine, and I'm looking forward to the new week.
And we are sorry that we couldn't bring Friday's episode from Chermside to you. Here's Mark.
Yes, we had a few technical issues and timing issues, and yes, it all culminated in not getting the show completed. So we do apologise for that, and I'm sure we'll make it up for you though.
And we've got a big show coming up for you today. We'd like to talk about today how to send emails in a polite way. Now we've talked about phone manners, but the most important thing, guys, is your email etiquette. Now, sending an email in a polite way, well, firstly, you've got to think about the subjects you want to talk about, your issues and your questions, and the concerns that you want to raise. Here's Mark now to open episode 58 with that.
Thanks, Barry. Etiquette for sending emails. Well, it is not that different to talking to people directly. It's about clearly conveying what your message is, and asking questions that you have in a way that gives enough information that people understand what it is that you're asking, and include the people that need to know. So don't try and have 5 emails going out to 5 different people when you can just have one email going to 5 people but shared, and then everybody is involved in the responses as well, and it means that everybody who's involved can see what everybody else is responding with, and that makes it a much more informed contact. And you might ask a question of one person who may not know the answer, but somebody else in the group does know the answer. So you're always better off trying to include everyone involved in whatever it is that you're doing, rather than deal with all individuals every time.
So you must have all your questions ready, such as the date of what it is you're trying to organize. Okay, when and the time and be specific. Don't just say what date or date, because the 5 people who may read your email would think, well, this is not going to go past. We need more information than this. Here's Mark.
Yes, and hopefully, if everybody is involved, then the people that require more information will pipe up and say, yes, very good, but we require more information. And then because they respond in that manner, then somebody else in amongst that group goes, oh, well, I have that information. I can send it directly, rather than, particularly in this example, Barry being a middleman for everyone else.
Okay, because it's better than CCing everyone in so that they're on the same page. But then again, if you need to follow up with a phone call, then please do so. Here's Mark.
Yes, I was trying to explain the difference between verbal conversations versus a written record. And what it comes down to is that a verbal conversation is a he said, she said situation and is very open to misinterpretation and misrepresentation. Whereas a written dialogue is not open to interpretation. It is what it is. So, people can see very clearly what questions have been asked of whom and when, so that the onus of responsibility for answering, etc., is there and is a minimum expectation.
So, now that we've covered how to write emails in a nice way, there is a right way and a wrong way of writing emails. Now, if you write an email which is rude, okay, or abrupt or disrespectful, then people will just disregard it, okay, and put it in the recycle bin. Because if I receive a rude email, I would just not read it. Here's Mark.
Yes, it's and it remains a record. So if you plan on being rude then in emails, then plan for it to go on the record. It's a written correspondence and can't be refuted. So be careful what you write.
Because if there is threatening stuff in there, now it will still go on the record, but whichever way it goes, it will be reported either to the manager or the police. So please be careful, guys, how you write your emails and what you say in your emails. And like we've opened the show with how to write an email. Think about the topic you want to discuss. Okay? Whatever it is, your concerns, and all that. but don't babble on by saying, oh, I'm disappointed with this or that, because sometimes it may turn out it is what it is. Here is Mark.
Yes, some things are not movable just because we want them to be, and you can be upset about the fact that it's not movable, but that doesn't change the circumstances for the other person where they can't do anything about it. So, it then becomes your choice to wear it or not. And again, how you choose to respond to that is up to you. So you can either try and keep working to find a way around whatever it is that's not to your satisfaction, or you can accept it for what it is and adjust your plans.
But don't play the blame game, guys, because it won't work. Here's Mark.
It creates tension and bad blood when you start.
Like bad blood, like the Neil Sedaka song.
I'm not familiar with the lyrics enough to know how dark that is, but it is one of the things that you need to be aware of, that if you unfortunately push people the wrong way and there's nothing they can do about it, I can guarantee they will not thank you. So venting is sometimes counterproductive. So I would suggest that venting is something that should be done in private and to yourself, so that you don't create a record of abuse and bad blood with people that are, in theory, trying to work towards something that you're trying to achieve.
And this is what we like to open. This is what we opened episode 58 with. Now onto the wrap up of the Out and About series. As you've been hearing, the Out and About series will not be continuing in this format. I've already told you this, but over the past 7 months or so, or however long it's been, Mark and I have brought you some smashing episodes. Here he is to tell you about it.
Thanks, Barry. We've had a great time getting out and about and thoroughly enjoying the places that we've visited. So we've been into the city and crossed the Story Bridge. We've been into New Farm Park. We've been out to Scarborough. We've been out to Sandgate. We've been obviously out to Indooroopilly a few times, Chermside. We've seen a fair bit and brought you some very interesting destinations. So we hope you've enjoyed them as well. And we're looking forward to bringing you a few more shows before the final wrap.
And I've certainly enjoyed it too. Now, just going back over when we first started, it was on the Story Bridge, and it was the last day of autumn back then, and it was a cloudy, overcast, misty day. it looked like it was going to rain on us. Now our first cabbage, he took us there, but unfortunately couldn't bring us back. And on the way home we went a different route, and the driver turned off the meter halfway before we even got back here. This was on the 30th of May. Here's Mark.
Yes, it was a very interesting day from that perspective. You know, the trip in one taxi, and then from virtually the same spot, trip back using a different route, and boy, it was different. So he did end up turning the meter off well before we got back, and it did take a bit longer than the trip in as well, I must say. So it was an interesting day all round.
We can't tell you all that happened, but one particular episode, guys, and that was episode 21. Oh boy, I was not well. I was coughing, I was raspy, my voice had almost given out on me. Here's Mark.
Yes, you were in a bad way that day, the fateful trip to Scarborough, and it was a very long and frustrating day from the point of view of taxis again, and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. So that didn't help your demeanour at all, but by then you were all but asleep in the chair, just trying to stay awake. So it was a bad day for you to try and cope, and one that I'm sure when we repeated it, you have much better memories of the second time we went to Scarborough than the first.
And that night, guys, I tested positive, and that was really bad. As soon as the 2 drops went in, 1, 2, bang. Straight into bed I went. Here's Mark.
Well, I have to admit, I wasn't here for the finale, which was the testing. That was reported to me in a phone call just to let me know that you had COVID and I was there for close contact. So your positive result was a week off for me, not complaining at all. And of course, then a fortnight later, I contracted COVID as well. So we didn't do a show for a while. Most of June missed out.
They caught the full frontal. Here's Mark.
What do you mean they copped the full frontal?
I caught the full frontal first.
Ah, yes. Yep. So you were sick that day, and then, as I said, I got COVID 2 weeks later. So that put us out of action for yet another week, and it just meant that we didn't get together to make a show for a while.
And it was a sad time. And I've got to tell you guys, very frustrating. It was either the bed or chair. I couldn't come out of here. Everyone had to wear PPE equipment and goggles at the time. but I won't go too much into that. But I can tell you guys, it was a whole 12 days. I was cranky and frustrated. Here's Mark.
Yes. Well, of course, because of the circumstances, I only heard about your time with COVID and how frustrated you were, because obviously I hadn't seen you at all during that time frame. But knowing your love of getting out, I can't imagine that being stuck in the room was even close to satisfying.
Well, we're going to take a break now and plan where to go to make up for the lost time on Friday. But just to go over the email etiquette, please. If you don't understand something, please reply. I don't understand what you mean, and what is it that I'm missing? Here's Mark.
Yes, if you can't understand somebody's reply to your questions, then you need to ask for clarification. And you might need to give them some clarification if they seem to be not answering the question that you actually have. I tend to find that questions need to be restricted to less than 10 words if you want people to not be confused. The more information that you put into a single sentence question is only going to lead to a bit of confusion about what is the information that you really want.
So, just going over the opening sequence, please be nice in your email, don't be rude. Here's Mark.
Yes, there's no need to be rude. I am very keen on succinctness because, as I said, I find overly wordy questions or overly wordy explanations to meander and become confusing. So if you want a specific piece of information, just ask for that specific piece of information. Don't provide reasons or why you want it or anything that's going to lead to interpretation. Just ask for the information, and hopefully that is clear enough to the person you're asking that that's what you want. But you can't assume that if you haven't asked the specific question, that that's what they're going to get out of whatever it is you've asked them. You need to ask specific questions.
So, next up on the show, we're going to talk about the final couple of months here on the show. And also, discussing our final program for the year. So that's all coming up. So stay with us.
Well, here we are now for the continuation of episode 58, Sarah Turnside. Barry Beer and Martin Luke with you. It's just after 1 o'clock here on Monday, and we hope that you've had a good weekend. Well, our Out and About series will be coming to an end very soon, so do continue to I will do more of an update on that when I make some more inquiries. Well, today also we need to talk about our final show for the year, and it is coming to the end of the year back. And with November drawing more close, guys, we certainly hope that you enjoy the show with me. Here's Mark Inglis now. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Barry. Welcome back, viewers. Pleasure to be here. So, talking about the past and the shows, as we've covered off a little bit earlier, you know, we've done Invercargill, Chermside, Strathpine shopping centres, and been to Scarborough and Sandgate, and where else have we been though? New Farm Park, Story Bridge. So there's quite a few places for out and about, but still more to come.
And I'm going to find out after the show when I can go so I can see my brother, and if that's the case, then I might be finishing earlier. So we talked about email this morning to open the show, and like we said in the opening sequence, please do be polite. Here's Mark to reopen the show with that.
Well, we have talked about it in the past, and there is no restriction on the type of communication, whether it's a telephone, whether it's face-to-face, whether it's on paper, whether it's electronic, all the same rules apply. So,
it doesn't matter how often you say to people, do this or do that, but guys, you've got to be really polite about it, and tell them how concerned you are and the urgency of it. Here's Mark.
I have to admit, I was trying to explain to Barry the benefit of written communication versus verbal communication when it comes to you want to help things move along. If you politely ask questions and politely point out statements that have been made with expectations, then you're well within your rights to keep repeating those times, dates, assertions, requests, and then if nothing's happening, at least you then have a record to be able to go to a higher up within an organisation to say, why have my requests not been actioned? Why have they not been taken into consideration? Why have the time frames that I specified been totally ignored? All of these things, but as Barry keeps saying, you've got to be polite in the way that you go about it. Politeness does not mean letting people off the hook. It just means not being abusive. Statements of fact are absolutely fine as long as it's made as a statement of fact.
But like we said on the last couple of videos we brought to you, guys, if you read in the email there on the phone, it will not go down well. Here's Mark.
Yeah, you just need to, everything needs to be kept civil, courteous and functional. So when I say functional, it means that the topic of conversation needs to be what you want to talk about, which is what you're trying to organise, rather than somebody's shortcomings.
and if you've ever brought views on the phone, guys, it too will not go down well because, okay, here's an example, okay? If you will to someone in your email, they may read it and, excuse me, you will towards people in your email, like, where in your email, that's it. And we can't add any more than that. So inviting this topic on the show, please, guys, it does not hurt to be polite. If you're upset about something, say it in an email or talk to the person. That's all you've got to do. Mark and I can't add anything more to that.
Correct.
And like politeness doesn't get people off the hook, guys, but you've got to remember, okay, people have dozens of emails to sit through, okay, either because we've been on a holiday or we've not been there, so take that into consideration too, because some emails, right, they may contain 1,000 words, and again, Mark and I can't add any more to that. Well, it's coming up to the end of November. We're coming into December now. And very soon it will be our last out and about for the year. And here's Mark to show you about it.
Yes, the end of the year approaches quickly. So, regardless of when you're moving, Barry, the December series of Out and About is upon us, and you know, we might have to do a Christmas special.
Yes, and guys, we've said this in the past, if you're planning your holiday, please plan it well, service your car, you know, that's all you've got to do. Make sure you service it before you take it away anyway, because guys, safety on the road is important, as it the same on the street, which we'll talk about in a moment. Okay, drive safely to your destination, because your loved ones are waiting for you. Here's Mark.
Yes, drive safely and do everything you can to make sure that your car is fit for the road, and be careful.
And that's all we can say on that. Because, yeah, and if you drink and drive, guys, you're an absolute fool in doing that. Because think about your options. Should you drink or should you drive? The ball is in your court, in your court, guys, because you only have the one life, so please do not waste his money.
There's really no excuse for drink driving these days. Between Uber and taxis, there's more than enough transport to get us around. I know it's not always there at 3 o'clock in the morning, but then you know before you go out that if you're out till 3, you will struggle. So if you don't want to struggle to get transport, don't stay out so late.
and make sure that you've got enough money on your credit card as well, and make sure that you tell the cab driver where you want to go before when you go out or after you've been out. Okay? So all these things you have to take into consideration, because safe speeding, right? There is no safe thing. Here's Mark.
Well, it's just a matter of pre-planning to take care of yourself.
Because remember, like I did say a couple of minutes ago, if something goes wrong when you're on that road, that's it. The journey is over before it ends, and please have a good night's sleep before you hit the road, and God provide survive. Here's Mark.
Yes, there's a lot of ways to take care of yourself in the car. Planning your trip, making sure your car's in good condition, you've checked your tyres at the right pressure, you've had a good sleep, you haven't been drinking, you're well fed, you're not tired, and that's just do what you can to minimise risk. There's no such thing as zero, because that would mean you won't get it in the car. But do everything you can to help yourself minimise your danger.
And know your limit, and don't go well within the breathing. Stay under 0.05 zone. It's as simple as that. Here's Mark.
Yeah. I shouldn't have to speak about drink driving at all, so I won't elaborate.
You're right. So, don't drink drive, guys. It's as simple as that. Okay? That's all there is to it. And you take a quick break, make a phone call, and then come back. Welcome back, and this is the closing segment. It looks like things are going ahead. Here's Mark.
Yes, we've just had a discussion with the organiser, and it does look like things are going ahead now, and we have some clarity around who's meant to be doing what, and so Barry can rest a bit easier now.
Okay, so in closing our show today, we'd like to say thank you for joining us today. And normally we would stay on about 0, but we are not going to, because you all know when to call and when not to call. Here's Mark to close the show with that.
Thanks, Barry, and take care, everyone, and I hope for your sake that you never need 000, but if you do, then call it. But of course, if you don't need it, don't call it.
Because the wrong call that you make, the 000 guy, you could be taking away an operator that could be trying to save a life, and it could be yours one day. So we're up to go and have some food in the food court now, and that's the end of episode 58. Thanks for joining us. Here's Mark now.
Thanks for coming, everyone, and we look forward to turning up for episode 59, and take care in the meantime.
And tomorrow we'll be talking about our final show for the year and possibility of an annual moving day. So we look forward to your company then. And by the way, we saw big tickets in the King today. Here's Mark to take us out with that.
There were a few ticket wins at Kingpin today, and just as well, it's gotten your card up to VIP status, and you'll be able to save some money in the future.
So we look forward to your company then. So until then, guys, so we see you a great part and have a good afternoon and we'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, everyone.
Well, back and play part to wrap it all up. So,
Bye for now.
bye for now. Well, we've come to the end of another film, and another episode of Out and About. Join us again tomorrow, and before we do go, just a couple of rules. We open the show with your email etiquette. Here's Mark to recap on that.
Thanks, Barry. Yes, we determined that emails are exactly the same as every other form of communication, where you need to be civil, courteous, and even more importantly, because this is written communication, it needs to be very clear in what you're either asking or telling, and hopefully, if you make it exceptionally clear and don't cloud your questions with irrelevant information, if you want to know the answer to a question, just ask the question. If you provide then a truckload of extraneous information, it then confuses what the question is. So if you want a question answered, just ask the question, and don't worry about extraneous information. And but it needs to be a clear question. The same as when you're telling someone something, it needs to be a clear statement without a lot of extraneous information to make it confusing. So it's better to keep your written communication succinct and to the point.
And stick to your subject as well, guys, because it is really important. Here's Mark.
Yes, absolutely sticking to the subject is that was the point I was trying to make by saying keep it simple. If you want to ask a question, just ask that question. Don't confuse the question with lots of extra information. And the same when you're telling someone something. Just answer a question. But try not to have too much extra information that then confuses the answer to the question.
Because it is confusing, guys. Here's Mark.
All your communications should be succinct and to the point. As Barry said, when you're doing written communication, it makes life easier. And as a tool for communication, it's great as long as that is the focus of what you're doing. So if you want to let someone know you're unhappy, tell them that you're unhappy, but don't confuse your questions with trying to let them know that you're also unhappy. Just ask very clear questions that people can't confuse what it is that you want from them. And then if you don't get it, well worth asking people for clarification, but only if they ask for clarification should you start adding information.
Because it makes the conversation confusing, guys. Here's Mark.
Well, you have to admit it. It gets confusing because you start out wanting to know the answer to question A and somehow get sidetracked on to question B, E, F, G, and A just goes missing in all of the wave of information that you get. That's why it's best to keep them succinct and absolutely focused. So just think about what is it that I actually want the answer to and just ask that question.
So that's all we've got time for today. But join us again tomorrow on the show. Until we see you tomorrow, it's bye for now.
See you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.
Well, it's nearly lunchtime. Unfortunately, we don't have anything to cook for you today. But the exciting news is I don't have to give 90-day notice to FCA. Here's Mark to open part 2 of our show with that.
Thanks, Barry. We've been checking on the notice time that Barry has to give to be able to leave Bray Park, and it had been suggested that one of the entities that needed to be notified was going to require a 90-day notice, but once we checked with them, it was only 2 weeks, which means the longest notice that Barry is required to give to anyone involved is 30 days. So it's a happy day here at the moment while we explore that fact and start making some plans.
So, like we said, unfortunately, the Out and About series will conclude. I'm just waiting on some phone calls and prices and quotes, and then I can just wipe the bench clean. Here's Mark to open that funny joke.
You are looking forward to wiping the bench clean, and some of the reasons for you wanting to go just keep popping up and reminding you that that's really what you want to do. So it just reinforces that you're making the right decision to move back to Sydney. So the excitement level is high, and the more we look into it, the easier it seems.
Yeah. So guys, we'd like to ask you today, what has been the most favourite episode? Now, we covered this last week, and it's important that you tell us. Now, normally we would ask you to write in, but if you don't feel like writing in, guys, there is absolutely no need to, and probably not worth it now. Here's Mark.
Well, Barry, I have been wondering, is there any way for people to contact you through YouTube? Can they?
They can leave a comment and things like that, so
Yeah.
there's absolutely no harm in that.
Well, if they're in there watching the show, it seems like the easiest option for them to give us some feedback. So it'd be handy if people can just click on whatever it is to be able to send you a message.
So guys, like I've said, the Out and About series will conclude once I get once I get the news from Derek. We still have to bring Qantas back, which we will do today. So, like I said, we're not doing it bigger shows like we have been because I thought I was going to stay on for longer, but it looks like not. Here's Mark now.
Well, whilst we're here, we'll keep doing it, and I'm sure in the not too distant future, you will be able to shout forth a date for the move, and once you have that date, then obviously that's going to determine how many shows we've got left to do, and we'll be able to give people a definite time frame.
And I thought on the last show we might even start our adventure where we began it, on the Story Bridge. But who knows?
Well, we might have to go to the Story Bridge, then end up under the Story Bridge, where they hide the Story Bridge Hotel.
And what we'd like to say is a really big thank you for tuning in over the past 7 months or so. And my patience, like I've said many times, has paid off. Here's Mark.
It has been a battle of patience, hasn't it, Barry? I take my hat off to you. When dealing with bureaucracies, I struggle with the weight of bureaucracy and the way it seems to trip over its own feet to slow everything down. And hopefully this is going to have a quick conclusion.
And if it does, I can wipe the bench.
Absolutely.
Because it's no good wiping our hands off it on it now.
No, well, you've only just got your teeth into it now, so...
Cause like, excuse me, cause like Derek said, it's good news. And Derek, if you are watching this, mate, good afternoon to you. Excuse me. Excuse me, I'm just choking on my excitement there. So, the excitement is building. Here's Mark now.
Well, we're starting to get down to looking at flights, and really that's the only thing left to do is put an actual date down on paper and work towards it. So, they've got to organise removalists and staff for your travel. But apart from that, there's really nothing else to do except give notice and move on.
And I can give this studio to someone else who needs it.
Absolutely. I'm sure it won't stay idle for too long.
So we're going to take another break now and see and try and book some flights. See you soon. Well, it's coming to the end of our Out and About series. And we certainly hope that you enjoyed it. My time here at Bray Park is also coming to a close as well. And to discuss this, I'm rejoining the studio with Mark English. Good afternoon.
Afternoon, Barry. Afternoon, viewers. Yes, you've been waiting very patiently, I must say, to get the news that your move has moved beyond approved. In other words, that something functional has been organised about getting you onto a plane and back to Sydney. So it's finally come to fruition. And
what does fruition mean, so our viewers know out there?
Well, it's finally come to what you wanted to happen. So the end result, or the target for you, was moving back to Sydney, and that's exactly what's going to happen.
And nobody can take that away from them.
No, not now.
Not now.
So it is set in stone. Your move is definitely happening. The only question now is when. So hopefully Derek will get the information that he needs in the next day or so. He's only waiting on that one more piece of information, and once he has it, decisions can be made and notices can be given and flights can be booked and everything can be stepped up to getting you back.
And I can tell you guys, I'm looking forward to it very, very much. And like I just said 5 seconds ago, it will not be stopped. Give Mark.
Yes, it won't be stopped, and you have been talking about it since I met you, as we've discussed in the past. So on our first meeting, you did say that you weren't going to be here for long, and in fact you had it into your head then that you were heading back to Sydney in August. So that did not happen, and it's taken a lot more talk and patience on your part to move it ahead to the stage it's at now, and we're at the end of November.
So nobody can say, no, Barry, you're not going now.
No, definitely not. And hopefully it's going to happen even sooner than we anticipated.
So let me take you back to where Bray Park when I first arrived. Okay, it was a harrowing time for me because I was very nervous very overwhelmed. New surroundings, new people, new bedroom,
New life.
and new life. I was away from my family and my friends, and I was thinking, did I make the right decision moving up here in the first place? Well, the answer is no. And I do regret that, viewers, because I've left all my family and friends behind, but that was in the earlier stages. And then in May, I became really homesick and almost, well, brought to tears for that matter. I don't know what almost brought to tears means, but I think Mark better explain that.
Well, you were extremely upset about your living arrangements and you were terribly homesick. And I don't think that's something that you can predict, because until you've left everyone behind, you don't have any perception of what it's going to be like. And so it's not something you can pre-plan for. And it wasn't until you got here that you realised how much you missed everyone in Sydney, and that network of friends and family, and, you know, right, as you said, right down to where you were living and the staff that you were used to seeing on a daily basis. And when you moved up here, everything was new. And of course came with all of the teething problems that you get with you.
And it's like with buying a new pair of shoes. Are they going to fit you? Well, the shoe was tight on the feet, I can tell you that. And that's just the saying, guys. Here's Mark.
Yes, you weren't comfortable and you did regret your move, but at the time there was no easy way for you to move straight back. So it's resulted in this rather long and arduous 6 months of talking and waiting and talking and waiting and talking and waiting to get to the point where we now have enough information to nearly be able to give notice, which would mark the end.
So my first 4 days here in Brisbane, well, did I come straight to Bray Park off the plane? No, I ended up in the hospital for the first couple of days here. And my first, well, I ended up going into the hospital straight after getting off the flight because I was sick. And then whilst I was in the hospital, I was waiting, or in the emergency department, I was waiting for a bed to become allocated. So do I stay in overnight or go straight to Bray Park the next day? Well, and for that, I was hoping to go straight to Bray Park, but not to be. I ended up being admitted. I won't tell you what I had, but then on the Monday I became emotional and wished that I hadn't come here because I was really scared at the time and it was really really not a good start for me. And then on April 5th at 3 o'clock, like it is now, straight into I came to Bray Park in an ambulance. And my dad had arrived, and it was not an easy lift from the stretcher to the bed because I had been using a Dart hoist back then. So not very good. So then I had my 47th birthday here, then Easter, then Anzac Day. And then May came along, and like I said, I became really homesick and wanted to go back. Here's Mark.
Of course, I only met you at the end of May, so you'd obviously already become homesick and made up your mind that you were going back. So as I said, the first time I met you, you were telling me about you were going back and that you expected it to be in August. So, which didn't seem unreasonable given that it was May at the time. And I thought, that's how long it takes.
And given the fact that on the 20th of May, I got some really bad news about the NDIS not being able to fund me back, and what was worse, I didn't have anywhere to go, and I had a really bad time back then. Then out and about began, and here's Mark to tell you about it.
So Out and About started at the end of May when we joined forces to go onto the Story Bridge for the first time. And that was my first outing with you, Barry. So interesting day out, no doubt. And we managed to get through it all right. So it sort of snowballed from there, the idea of Out and About and trying to make it a bit more informative for people and see if they could learn something from it, as well as, maybe provide suggestions about where to go in Brisbane and what to do and what fun things there are that you can access.
And like I said before, we've done some excellent things, but I've had my ups and downs with Bray Park. Okay, because living in a home with different people, guys, it's not easy. So it had not been easy. Here's Mark.
It's actually been extremely difficult for you because the environment is not communicative, and so it means that even though you do share the house, you can't really share any time and emotions with people because they're unable to communicate with you. So that makes life extremely difficult, and the environment can be challenging.
So on the 4th of May, I had nearly close to tears. I didn't I was very overwhelmed. And then things started to pan out after the bad news, and then on episode 20, okay, I thought I had been approved, but then not to be. So everything was going dragging on, like dragging down instead of up. So, a very disappointing couple of months. And then on the 14th of June, which was out and about, and episode 21, that was not a good day there. We started the show in the studio, started to cough. Okay, I didn't have a mask on until we went out. Okay, so, it wasn't until until lunchtime, after lunch, I flagged really badly. Here's Mark.
Yes, you were going downhill fast, and to be honest, I didn't notice until after lunch that you were unwell. When we were here in the studio, you seemed fine, and I thought you were fine when we tripped out to go to Shorncliffe, Scarborough, I should say, and it was clearly, not the case, because almost immediately after lunch, you went downhill very quickly.
And when we got home from Scarborough, from doing episode 21, I had the COVID test, and that was it. The 2 lines basically dropped there. Came up on the white window. And that was it. It was either do the studio session in the chair or lie in the bed. Here's Mark.
Well, obviously, we didn't have any contact during that time, Barry, because we couldn't. And it was a shame, because the one thing that you really were missing was some more company. And it was the one thing that you could have zero of. So it was a very difficult time for you, being stuck in your room.
And frustrating. And then June ended and July started with a movie and burger day here from Grilled, and we watched the movie, a wet day there. Here it was, and all of that. So that was good there. I went to South Bank on the train, okay, and that was good there. And then on Friday I went to Redcliffe. That was on July 8th. Okay, but then after I got back, received some very sad news, which we won't go into on the show, or won't discuss, I should say. And then the rest of July, I was alone until July 26th. That was when my new flatmate arrived. And then another person came in a couple of months later. September came along. Okay, I had a few niggling issues there. And then October, I was crook. I'm just pause that so I can get back. So August came along and then Mark went away. And then September, October went, and now we're at the tail end of November. Now, before the end of November hit, I got 2 phone calls. One about my house approval. Okay. And the second, which we are going to talk about now, the move. It is happening. Here's Mark.
You received the news that you had been accepted at your new accommodation in Sydney, and that meant that the move was on and just needed to be organised. And since then, you've just been working towards getting the information to everyone that needs to be involved, to tick all the boxes, to use up the 20 miles of red tape that there is, to actually get the move to happen.
And I think it is. It will happen. Here's Mark.
It has been absolutely approved. We're now at the point of booking things. It's actually never been closer. So this is the beginning of the actual organising for the move. In the past, it's just been working towards cleaning up the bureaucracy required to be ticked off before you could start organising the move. But now we're at the point of the actual work towards the move.
Well, yesterday we talked about email etiquette on the phone, so you will be able to see yesterday's show and today's show, which we're drawing to a close in just a couple of minutes. So Mark and I would like to thank you sincerely for being with us along the way. Here he is.
Absolutely. For all those that have watched and enjoyed, thank you for your time and support. It's a labour of passion for Barry, and nothing gets in his way. So he's dedicated to getting these videos out for your viewing, and hopefully you get something out of them.
Now, I did say that if you have anything that you'd like us to cover on the show, normally I would say this. That's if I was staying longer. But it looks like I won't need to now. Here's Mark.
Well, it looks like the move will happen much sooner than expected now, in the context of what you were originally told about how much notice you had to give to everyone. And as it transpires, the most notice you need is 30 days. So it means that where you were mentally preparing for a 3-month wait for the permanent move back to Sydney, it's only going to be a month wait. from the time that the bookings are made and that the notices are handed in.
So, guys, like I just said, the Out and About series will come to an end, and we certainly hope that you've enjoyed it, and there will still be another Out and About series, another Out and About show, I should say, on the way on Friday when we meet with you, and who knows where we'll end up. Here's Mark.
Well, I'll tell you right now, Barry, I'm very hopeful that where we end up with by Friday afternoon is a date.
All right.
That's my mission for this Friday, that by the time Friday afternoon rolls around, you have a date that you can work towards. And if that happens, it will be a truly sensational week.
And I will pause that again. So, basically, guys, it is the end of the Bray Park story, just about, and the Out and About. And like I said before, it has been a harrowing couple of months. Here's Mark.
That very much sums it up, Barry, because not only have you had to deal with the hassles of trying to get this move organised, but you're still dealing with the reason that you want to move in the first place. And on top of that, I think your living arrangements have changed yet again and are even less desirable than they were before for you. So you are absolutely mad keen to have this move happen, and it couldn't have occurred at a better time for you, that at least the news was good and you know that you're going to be able to move soon.
And like Derek said, until systems go on that phone. Here's Mark to tell you about it.
Yes, you've had it confirmed from the organiser that it's all systems go, and as we've said already today, there is only one more piece of information he requires before we can move forward, before you can move forward. So hopefully that information comes through. It is always the most frustrating aspect of dealing with bureaucracies in this manner, and that he is now waiting on a third person that he's been waiting on for 2 weeks, still waiting, and eventually it will happen, but that's all that you're waiting on for to be able to move forward now.
So as we draw episode 59 to a close now, we're not going to bang on about 000, because all of you know when to call that number and when not to call it. I will, however, be doing a community service announcement when I return to my Sydney productions, and telling you how important it is when to call 000. But for the meantime, I won't be doing that here, because as I said, I'm not staying here permanent. Here's Mark now.
Yes, although your service announcements are national, so it won't make any difference to anyone in Australia where they're watching from or where your show is made from. with regard to 000. So the same message applies everywhere for the same reasons.
So we'd like to say farewell to you now. Thanks for your company, and we will see you for episode 60 on Friday.
Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you on Friday.
And Derek, if you are watching, mate, thanks for bringing us some positive news. Here's Mark to close the show with that.
Very positive news. It was that final little bit you needed, wasn't it, Barry? Just so that you fully felt comfortable that the move was going to happen.
And here he is to tell you about it.
So we were chatting to Derek, and we were talking about time frames for notice. We did a little bit of research, got back to Derek, and he had also done the same research in the meantime, and we both had the same answer, which was it was nowhere near as much time notice as everyone had anticipated, and your 90-day notice has dropped to 30 days across the board. So absolutely no reason why this move isn't going to happen soon.
So, this is a very happy Barry Pig here, wishing you a very good afternoon. Thanks for your company, and we will see you on Friday. So, take care, everybody, and bye for now.
See you then.
Bye-bye.